I really am always looking forward to doing the online workshops. I know there's a tremendous amount of information that I'm going to be able to share with people. And the thing that's also so cool about doing these online is that I get a chance to connect with people from literally around the world. And it really does make this planet a much smaller place. So let me start off by talking about what we're going to be discussing today. And so here are the topics. First, I'm going to be explaining what commercial modeling is all about. I'm going to share with you a technique that I created that will completely change the way that you work with photographers. It will just take your photos to a whole new level and make these shots just explode and jump off the page. And so I'm going to show that to you. How to create really strong commercial photos. This part is just essential because so many people unfortunately spend a lot of time and money having very nice pictures taken of themselves. And the problem is sometimes those shots don't necessarily sell you well. And that, to me, that's one of the main reasons why people drop out of the industry so quickly. It's because they've invested a lot of time and money and energy into putting together these materials. They find that nothing really happens for them, and then they just leave. And the thing that's sad about it is they probably have the talent, they've got the look, they just didn't have the information and they didn't have the right materials to really give them their best chance for success. So you're going to learn exactly how to go about doing that. I also want to share with you the business end of the industry. That's another part of the industry that most people really don't learn about until either they make a huge mistake and lose a lot of money and then they learn from it, or they just simply never even get to that place. So you're going to be learning some things that will save you literally thousands and thousands of dollars. And then at the very end, I want to give you a homework assignment so you can practice doing this. And I know I'm going to be mentioning this at the end, but I'll say it up front as well. I've created a really, really great community of people in the industry on my facebook.com/how to model page. And this is a great area where we can share information. So while you're going through this entire process of coming up with ideas for your next photo shoot, please, share the information on the facebook.com/how to model page. And that way I can give you feedback. Hopefully other people will be able to comment as well. And we can continue to grow this community of people worldwide who, instead of competing with each other and, feeling any kind of competition, instead, we've got a community of people who are sharing information and trying to help each other. And to me, that seems like a great way to not only live your life, but to run your business as well. And anyhow, so I'm just offering that to you. And also, please share that page with other people also. Like the page. That way you can get information sent to you when I update things, and you can let other people know about it too, so we can continue to build the community. Okay, so let's get started with, let me explain what commercial modeling is all about. They also call it commercial print. Same thing, print work, commercial modeling work. So one of the best ways of beginning to describe it is to compare it to fashion work. And then I'll go into much more detail about commercial modeling. But basically in the fashion world, those are the high-end models who are doing runway shows. They are helping to promote high-end designer clothing. And typically, to be a fashion model, if you are a girl or a woman, you're going to be between 5'9" and 6 feet tall. Typically, your measurements, it doesn't have to be exact. It's going to be around 34, 24, 34. And you've got to have a very specific look. Every agent, every fashion agent has a very specific look that they're going after. Some places have more of kind of all-American beauty. Some have more of a hard edge kind of look. And so there are different types of fashion models that are needed. And basically, and not to exclude men. Men are going to be between 6 foot and 6'2", and you're going to wear a size 40 jacket. Typically, that's or 40 long. Those are going to be the measurements, and there are some exceptions to the rule, but pretty much, if you are, 5'4", 5'5", 5'6", 5'7", even 5'8", sometimes it's going to make it really, really tough. It's also a young person's game. If you are over 21 years of age and you haven't already made it in the fashion world, it's going to be very hard to break into the industry. Also, you have to be living in a fashion market. So in the United States, you're going to be living in, typically it's going to be New York, LA, could be Chicago, Miami. If you're in Canada, typically Montreal is going to be the city for you, and certainly in Europe there are other places. There's Paris, there's Milan, where a lot of testing is done. But basically, you've got to be in those areas. And just so you guys know, the reason why you have to have such unusual statistics is because the designers believe that their clothes will look best in a certain size. And essentially, you have to fit into their samples. They don't make samples for the models to fit into. So you've got to fit into their sample sizes. Now, there is a whole other world of modeling out there that has nothing to do with fashion, and it's called commercial modeling or commercial print work. You see commercial models every day in tons of different magazine ads, newspaper ads, brochures, direct mail pieces, junk mail. You see us on packages. Sometimes if you buy, let's say, a cell phone, you might see a commercial model talking into the cell phone. You see us on billboards, posters, on the sides of buses, on the internet. You see us all over the place. And the thing that's so cool about commercial modeling is everybody is needed. They need beautiful women who are going to be doing ads for jewelry stores. They need incredibly handsome guys who are going to be doing ads for cruise lines. They need people with great bodies who might be doing editorial shots, which I'm going to explain to you in greater detail later, for health magazines or cycling magazines. You see us all over the place. They need infants, they need people in their 80s. So basically, if you are breathing and you can make it to a photographer's studio, there's a possibility that you could work as a commercial model. And the real trick to getting the work as a commercial model is understanding, number one, how to create the right kinds of commercial photos that will help sell you, and also understanding how to work with photographers. So let's keep going, and let me start off by sharing with you this really incredible technique that I have created, I've massaged, I've changed a bit over the years, but this is what you want to do. And for those of you who are interested in acting, this is wonderful, because for me as an actor, and probably about, well, it varies. It's funny. There are some time periods I'll get more modeling work, other time periods more straight acting work. But as someone who views themselves, like me, as an actor who does commercial modeling work, this fits into your acting skill sets, because the people who I find who get the most work are the people who have some acting skills. I'm not saying you've got to be, a Shakespearean actor, you've got to be the greatest actor in the world, but what will help you tremendously in the commercial modeling world is if you can take certain direction from the photographer and believably create a variety of emotions and expressions during the photo session, so that you don't look like a model, so you don't look somebody posing for the camera. Instead, you look believable, you look real. This is how you're going to do it. So the very first thing that I do, let's say this is a job, and I'm on the set, and the very first thing I'm going to do is ask the photographer, once we're about ready to shoot, I will ask, what are you looking for? What do you need? And the photographer might say, okay, you are a consumer and you are frustrated. And I might ask, well, why am I frustrated? Because the more information I get, the greater the chances are I will be able to deliver the looks that are needed. I do the same thing at a go-see, which is the audition for modeling. I always ask the photographer, what are you looking for? Now, just so that you are prepared. Not everybody works and thinks this way, and you might ask, the photographer, so what are you looking for? And they might say, well, somebody who's happy. Well, see, that doesn't tell me anything. When somebody says, well, let me see happiness, I mean, I'm thinking, well, what kind of happiness? I mean, there are lots of different kinds of happiness. So the more specific somebody can explain it to me, the greater the chances are I'll be able to give them the look that they need. So if by chance you're either at a go-see or you're at a job and they say something kind of generic to you, and then you follow it up and say, well, can you tell me why I'm happy? And they give you the response of, I don't know, you're happy. Let me just see you happy. Don't start battling with them. Don't start fighting. Don't start saying, hey, look, I'm just trying to make the job better here. Explain it. Don't get into any of that stuff. What I do in those situations, and it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes, what I do is this. I make a decision on my own. I think of a very specific reason why I'm happy. It might be the right one, might not be the right one, but you are always, always much better off giving a specific emotion that's interesting, that's believable, than just doing a generic kind of smile, because that's not going to grab anybody's attention. So let's get back to being on the set. This is a job, and I am a consumer. I know the ad's for a bank because I have already asked the agent, what is this ad for? And they might say to me, okay, well, there are two shots for this particular ad. This is a brochure. On the front cover of the brochure, I am frustrated. And the reason why I'm frustrated is because at all the other banks in town, they just treat me like a number. Nobody takes care of me. Nobody's really all that interested in me. I'm just another number to them. So I'm thinking, okay, so I am a frustrated consumer because people aren't taking care of me. Got it. Now the second shot, and that's when you open up the brochure and I go to this particular bank and I open up an account, and now it's warm, fuzzy, friendly because people really treat me like a family member. So for that shot, I know I'm going to think about people that I care about, people that I love, people who are important to me. And you will see that warmth and that friendliness shooting out of my eyes. That's what you want to do. So for that opening shot, I'm thinking, okay, so how do I do this? And by the way, at the very end, when I give you your homework assignment, you're going to practice this, but I'm going to just show you what I do, and I can do it instantly because I've already done my homework. So what I will do is I'm going to tap into a previous experience in my life where I wasn't treated well at a store, because that will make it very clear as to how I'm going to grab the emotion that they need. So let me share with you the real example that I always go to because it's a good one for me. So as you guys probably know, I travel a lot. I fly around quite a bit. And when my children were younger, whenever I was at an airport in various states or different countries, I would always buy them snow globes. Those little things, they're little plastic or glass containers, and you shake them up, little snowflakes come down. It says the name of the state or the country on it. My kids always love getting those. So I'm at the airport. I've got two snow globes in my hand. I'm waiting in line for the cashier, and she's on the phone. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got a couple of minutes. No big deal. I guess there's something going on with business she's got to finish up with. So my very first shot of the session is going to be this. First, I will literally either put my hand up or put my finger up and just say, oh, to the photographer, oh, could I just have 1 second? Then what I do is, because basically I don't want the photographer to shoot yet. I'm not ready for the photographer to shoot yet. So what I do is I stop the photographer. I will literally look away from the camera, because that way I know he's not going to shoot. Look away from the camera, I look down, and in an instant, in a second, I will either say a word, maybe say 2 words, maybe it's just making a sound. Whatever it takes for me to relive that emotion of being at the airport, standing in line, seeing the cashier on the phone, and then I might say something like, all right, I'm ready. And I look back up to the camera and bam, that's the very first shot. Now the photographer asked for frustration. And I realized that very first look that I gave, there wasn't a lot of frustration in it. And that's fine. That's okay. That's my starting point. And then I'm going to build things up from there. Now, what I'm going to show you here in about a minute and a half could be a 2-hour or 3-hour, 4-hour photo shoot, but you'll get the idea and you'll learn how to do this. So that's my opening mark. Very little frustration, but that's my starting place. Next, after the shot is done, I turn away and I do the same thing, but now I'm going to build it up a little bit because, see, my goal, and this holds true whether you're doing test shots for your next composite sheet or for your agent's website or your website, or if it's at a go-see or a job, same thing. You want to show a variety of expressions and emotions. You want to give these people lots of choices, because when you give them lots of different ideas to choose from, they're going to love working with you. And when they love working with you, they're going to rehire you again and again and again. So second shot, you saw the opening one. Now I'm going to build it up a little bit more. I'm still standing in line. She's still on the phone. Come on. Wow, well, that felt very different to me. On another little side note, I don't like using mirrors to try this out. When you're doing your homework assignment, I find it too confusing. And if I'm looking at myself during the shot, I'm not really in the right place. So, and I'll talk more about this later, but just get anybody to take some snapshots, whether it's using your cell phone. If you have a digital camera, it doesn't make any difference. But personally, I don't like mirrors. Okay, so that's my second shot. Let me build it up some more. So she's still on the phone. I'm getting a little bit more frustrated now. Come on. Now I'm feeling angry. And you can see from that first to the second to the third shot, very different kinds of emotions. Now, for the very last shot of the day, now I'm going to give a very different kind of look. And now I'm actually overhearing the cashier who's on the phone. And here I thought maybe she was having problems with the cash register. She's having some technical problems, As it turns out, she's having a personal phone conversation. She's talking to a friend of hers about what she's going to be doing later that night. And I felt outraged. Like, you're making me stand in line while you're talking to a friend about what you're going to do later? That's crazy. It's not right. And so for the very last shot of the day, and I might even ask the photographer, hey, do you think you have, all the shots you need? And the photographer will probably say, yeah, you gave me a lot of different ideas. Then I might say, well, can I just play with one? I've got another idea. Very last shot of the day, I am just going to scream. I am so angry. Now, I'm not going to really scream so much here because it will blow your ears out. Probably not good for the microphone, but I'll give you like a little sample. Very last shot. Now I'm so angry because she's just making me stand in line, and it might be, come on. Now, once again, it's very, very different from all the other shots throughout the day. And what you'll find is when you work this way, whether it's a shot where you're showing frustration, maybe it's a shot where somebody just proposed to you and you've got to feel this love and this warmth. You can take that to many different places. It could be anything from shock, like you had no idea this person was going to propose to you. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe it's touching something inside of you from a previous experience that you're just so much in love and overwhelmed by this, you just can't believe it, which is not so much the shock, but it's the warmth and the love. There are many different layers that you can show here. That's what you want to do. Now, there are times where you might be asked to show an expression that you've never experienced. That's very possible. And let me give you a perfect example of that. I've done a number of lottery ads. And when I am asked, okay, let's see your look, you just hit the lottery. Now, the question that I always ask is, how much did I win? That's That's crucial. I mean, with that information, how could you possibly give them the look that they're going after? I've done some lottery ads where they were just, it was a special, let's say like a Valentine's Day lottery, and the top prize was $1,000. That's great, but it's not a life changer. There are other ads that I've done where I've won $100,000. Once again, that is unbelievable. It's not meaning that I can retire. Not that I would retire anyway, because I love doing this stuff. But you get the idea. Now, if we're talking about multi-million dollar hits, that is a very different kind of look. So the question that I always get is, well, how do you show that kind of look if you've never experienced that? So here's what I do. I will think of another experience that I did have. It has nothing to do with hitting lotteries, but it's a very similar kind of emotion. So for me, what I always do whenever it's a huge amount of money with the lotteries, and they say, okay, let me see that happiness, here's what I do. I think about the time when I used to play a lot of baseball. I was a pretty serious baseball player, and I was on an all-star team, and when I hit a grand slam, we win the game, I jump on home plate, and everybody's jumping up on top of me. That is my large lottery hit, because I'm in this place of, it's just unbelievable, the excitement, I'm screaming, and I literally will scream during the session. And once again, I don't want to scream too loudly here because I'm going to blow your speakers out or something. I will do it on the set, and it does surprise people sometimes. So what I will do is I will say, oh, could I just have a second? And I will look away, and because I've already done my homework assignment, I can just grab it instantly, and I will go, wow! And I just start screaming. Now, having said that, there are 2 time periods where I would not use this technique, where I'm thinking of a real experience, looking away, saying a word or 2, making a sound, bringing the look back up, and letting it go. 2 time periods. One is, oh, and before I even do that, let me just share one other thing. Once you're set in place, don't like twist your entire body and turn and stuff. What you're going to do is this. Wherever the photographer wants you to stand, I just turn my head and bring it back. So that way you're not doing any kind of big movement. You're not going to go out of focus. You're not going to change where you were. And it's just a simple head move and then right back. And if you are going to be using your hands, something that I also ask the photographer, what is in frame? Because if I go like this and everything is in frame, that's great. But if I go like this, then all of a sudden, parts of my hand and my arm are cut off. And that's not a good look. So if hands are going to be moving in the shot, like, wow, something like that, I always ask the photographer, is this an okay spot? And then what I do is I find a landmark for myself. And I know my left hand is going to be hitting the edge of, well, in this case, my monitor. But, maybe if you're in the studio, maybe it's a light, maybe it's a wall. And that way I can look away and bingo, I can hit this look all day long. And I'm making things go very, very, very smoothly. So the 2 times you don't use the technique. Number 1, if the photographer happens to say to you, I don't want to see it. I don't want you to use, I don't want to hear any sounds. I don't want to hear any words. It's only happened to me a couple of times. Honestly, I don't understand why they would have a problem with it. To me, what I've experienced is that most photographers absolutely love it, because they are working with an actor. They are working with somebody who's bringing many different expressions and emotions, and it allows the photographer to concentrate on the technical aspects of the shot. He's not pulling teeth, trying to say, no, you're really supposed to be happy, and you kind of look a little sad. Could you maybe open up your mouth a little bit more? They don't have to deal with any of that stuff because you're bringing so much to the table. So if that happens, then you're not going to fight with the photographer. You're not going to say, hey, what's your problem? Once again, they're paying you. They're the boss. You listen to what they have to say. And I'll show you how to deal with that in a second. The other time you don't want to use this technique is if you're doing a job, a modeling job with another model. who just isn't capable of doing that. And I'll give you a good example, and I'll make it real short. I was doing a scene with a model, and she was supposed to be portraying my wife, and we were out celebrating. Um, and so we're in this very romantic restaurant, and I did what I would do with any other kind of acting job, and the photographer was fine with this. And so we're sitting across from each other, and I put my hand across the table, and I'm holding her hand, and I'm just telling her how much I love her and care about her. I'm so thankful she's in my life, and you know, just all these really sweet, tender, nice things. And it felt really good. It felt right to me, and the photographer shooting away. And after like a minute, and I'm doing all this stuff, and the other model, like, she rips her hand back and she looks at me and she goes, "What are you doing?" And I was just stunned. And I looked at her and I said, I'm acting." I said, "You're supposed to be my wife, right?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, we're supposed to be in love with each other, right?" She goes, "Yeah." "And we're out celebrating." And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "That's all I'm doing." And it just became very clear that this was not somebody I could do this with. I mean, most other models that I've worked with, I mean, they're into it. I mean, they react, they listen, just like it's an acting job. So if you are in a situation where either the photographer says, "I don't want to hear anything," or the other model just doesn't get it, here's what you do. You stop all the stuff, and it's called an internal monologue. You think the words to yourself. That's how you continue to make your expressions real and believable. Because I can guarantee you, if your brain activity is dead, your eyes will be dead. And there's just simply no life in there. And those are boring shots. They're not interesting. So anyhow, that's the technique. And at the very end of the day, I'm going to go into a homework assignment with you just to show you how you can practice this on your own, and you will be great at it. And I'm telling you, when you're really good at using this technique, your photos will explode and jump off the page. Okay, so let me do this. Let me show you some examples of how I use this technique and what it looks like. Okay, so here's the very first one. This was a great ad. It was difficult. It was really hard. This was an ad for an IMAX movie that was running throughout the United States, and it's called Antarctica. And the art director mentioned, look, the whole concept of this ad campaign is this movie is so amazing. It's so real. You feel like you are in Antarctica while you're watching the movie. So what he also added to that explanation was, the other thing I just want to let you know, it's freezing in Antarctica, and I knew that. Like in the summertime, I think it gets up to 32 degrees. It's very cold there. So I want you to look like you're freezing, but I don't want people to think that they are going to be uncomfortable while they're watching the movie. So I want you to look like you're freezing, but having a good time. Now, I can tell you, if I'm freezing, I'm not having a good time. I don't like being freezing. I don't like being cold. And so I was trying to figure out, so how do I do this? How do I look like I'm freezing but having a good time? And then I started thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm hanging out with my family. We're playing out in the snow. Okay, got it. So we did that for a couple of minutes, and then immediately he switched. He goes, okay, now you're frozen solid. This movie is so interesting. It's so believable. You're there. You're frozen solid. You don't even realize you've got penguins there. You've got icicles forming on your face, on the chair. And then we did another one. He switched, and all of a sudden, this movie is so interesting. You don't even realize that all these things are taking place because you're so memorized by this movie. It's just so amazing. So we're constantly switching expressions and emotions. That is why this technique is so invaluable, because you'll be able to make those transitions very quickly. And as you can see, that's what we wound up with: freezing but having a good time. Okay, here's like a really quick look. Frustration. This is a typical kind of bank, and this was an ad where when you opened up the brochure, now they treated me like a family member, and it's warm and friendly. This one was funny. They actually needed somebody who could do a really bad impression of Elvis Presley. And I was the guy. This was a carpet convention that takes place in Las Vegas, and it's for a carpet uh, stain removal and stain resistant product. So here I am as a carpet salesman, kind of nerdy, but when I go to this convention, I transform. Actually, it was fun. They actually flew in wardrobe from a Vegas show. Here's another one. This was, some of you might have seen this. It ran throughout the Northeast on billboards for a pest control company. And, well, it was just kind of a funny thing doing. Shot my boxers up on billboards. But I can tell you, even though it's a little bit silly, it's fun to drive down the street and see yourself up on a billboard. I think that's really cool. This was amazing. And just on a, once again, a little bit of a separate note, just because you don't live in a major market doesn't mean that you can't do incredible jobs. This was shot in a very small market in Southern Virginia. And once again, just because it's not New York or LA or Chicago and Miami or Toronto or major markets, doesn't mean that the photographer isn't incredibly talented. The people from the advertising agency aren't amazingly creative. You know, for whatever reason, people have chosen not to live in a major market. So even if you're living in a small, smaller market, don't dismiss it. Don't think that there aren't some great jobs available for you. This was a phenomenal job. And I wanted to show you this because it's a little bit of a warning for your future photo sessions. This is for a bank, and the whole idea is, get the monkey off your bank. So this is Freddie, and Freddie is a capuchin monkey, and I'm great with animals. I love animals, and when the agent called me and said, "Look, they want to book you. I just got to make sure. Are you okay working with a monkey?" And I thought, you got to be kidding me! Oh my gosh, what a day! I'm going to be able to play with a monkey. Yeah, it sounds like the greatest job in the world. And so I went to the set, and fortunately, Freddie, he really liked me. I really liked him. He was grooming the back of my head, picking at my hair and stuff. And we did 7 shots on the first, and at this time they were using film, first roll of film. And for whatever reason, something got into Freddie, and he jumped off of my shoulders, and he went flying in the air, and he landed and bit the assistant photographer on the arm. And if you look at Freddie's teeth, they're sharp, they're big, and it was frightening. It was like a surgeon taking a scalpel and slicing this guy's arm open. I felt horrible. And I was shaking because he was sitting by my carotid artery. This guy could have killed me if he didn't like me. So the thing is, when you are setting up your test shots, actually there are two things I want to share with you about this. One is when you're setting up your new test shots, commercial shots, number one, don't use babies, don't use animals. They're unpredictable. And I'm not saying, if you've got a puppy, I wouldn't be so concerned about being attacked and mauled. But the thing is, it's hard to get them to do what you want them to do, just like with infants. So make your life easy. And I would avoid using animals and babies for your next test shots. The other thing, too, I just wanted to share with you. I made an assumption, and I guess my agent made the assumption. Here we're working with an exotic animal. It's not like working with a kitten or a dog. It's an exotic animal. I just assumed it was a professionally trained capuchin monkey. As it turns out, the owner of this animal is a gynecologist who has a farm. He's got a lot of really neat animals. So it was a friend of a friend of a friend of the photographers, and they it wasn't professionally trained. So if you're working with an exotic animal, you might want to ask the agent to find out, just to make sure that it is a professionally trained animal that is used to working, in front of cameras, used to people, and that will take some of the fear out of potentially getting, bitten. As you can see here, I do a lot of shots with animals. It was a Vietnamese potbelly pig. This guy was amazing. He's done lots of operas, TV commercials. He was very comfortable on the set. So I'm just going to flip through some of these. Frustration, which is an interesting kind of look, because you see a lot of these kinds of ads when you are considering putting together some new shots. But there are different kinds of frustration, and that's why you've got to ask, why is this person frustrated? Here's another kind of frustration. This one's a little bit bigger, a little bit more over the top. This one's kind of a silly kind of frustration. And I gave them lots of choices. And this is what they wound up using in the ad. Now, this isn't frustration. This is being incredibly uncomfortable and cold. It was for an air conditioning company, and I literally was in a bathtub, and they they actually poured buckets and buckets and buckets of ice into the tub. That was a very cold afternoon. Okay, some other animals. Sick. You guys might consider doing sick shots. Now, what I mean by that is this. Normally, you think of, oh, I want to be a model, and everybody thinks of beautiful shots. And if that's right for you, if that's a good look for you, then absolutely do that. But you will also notice there are tons and tons of ads with people feeling sick, people looking sick. So maybe those are shots you might want to consider putting together. And there are many different types of sickness as well. But as you can see here, I do a lot of sick shots. And I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty good at looking sick. This one I love. Always love this shot. This is a pharmaceutical ad for people with bad livers. And the whole concept of this ad is people don't take care of their livers because they can't see it. So what they did was, the makeup artist was phenomenal. She had an anatomy book, and she had pictures of bad livers. So what she did was she made my face look like a bad liver. And, ooh, a little bit creepy to look at, but that's what a bad liver looks like. Now, it's a great commercial photo. No, is it something that I would get if I went to a glamour photographer? I'm not going to be lying on a a white carpet looking like that. And it's not the kind of shot that my wife will have in her wallet. So when people say, "Oh, I heard your husband's a model. Do you have any photos?" No, that's not the kind of shot that she's going to pull out. Well, at least hopefully, and show and say, "Yeah, isn't he a good-looking guy?" But it's a great commercial photo. It grabs your attention. And what's also really interesting, it shows I've got acting skills. And the other thing too is, when you are creating these new shots, you want to bang people over their head with the look that is right for you. So that if I only had 4 shots on my composite sheet, and let's say, I tried to look good, and I looked like a happy business guy, or a happy dad, or a teacher. Well, if they needed somebody who looked sick and it was a pharmaceutical ad, they wouldn't necessarily be able to see it from those photos. So what I like to do for all of my composite sheets, or for agents' websites, bang people over the head with the look so they don't have to use their imagination. I wonder what that guy, I wonder if he could pull off the 6 shot, because you are going to show it to them and they can see it, and it will make it much easier for you to get booked for those kinds of jobs. So I go from being sick, and as you can see here, I do a lot of healing. I'm a doctor. I do a lot of doctor shots as well. Sometimes it's the frustrated doctor. Sometimes it's the doctor who's going to be very helpful to you. And sometimes I'm the happy patient because I've been healed by the doctor. Here's another pharmaceutical kind of shot, and it's a different kind of expression. And I'm a little bit concerned. Now, I wanted to show you this one. I'm the guy on the left, I'm in Crybaby, and I'm throwing Johnny Depp out of the courtroom. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because they use glycerin to create the tear. And you can see it on his cheek. And glycerin is very clear, it's thick, kind of looks like syrup, and it was great for the movie because they could place the tear wherever they wanted it. It stayed right there. But the reason why you never want to use glycerin in a shot, and it's not so much for the tear. I've heard of some people trying to use it to create and give the look of perspiration on your face. So if it's an exercise shot or a workout kind of thing, people put glycerin. The problem is, if it gets in your eyes, it will burn your eyes like crazy, and your shot is going to be done for the day. So if you're going to do an exercise shot, and your hair is going to be a little bit out of place, or you're showing perspiration, a little sweat, the best thing is, well, maybe run around a bit and actually perspire, or get somebody to spray you with some warm water. And that's a great way to show perspiration and not worry about turning your eyes red. But as you can see here, when you use this technique of thinking of the right emotion, looking away, bringing the look back up, you can see many, many different types of looks. And that's what I always try to do. Show many different types of looks. That's very different. That one's wild. And actually, I've got to say, for all the women out there who have really long fingernails, I have no idea how you live like that, because so they had to put these long nails on me. I opened up the door once, I broke the nail, I had a little itch on the side of my face, I almost poked my eye out. I don't know how you do computers, but well, it's a funny little shot. Molson Beer. I know you look at me and you might not think, oh yeah, Aaron Marcus, I'll bet you he could be the rock grunge guitarist. No, that's not the look that I normally give in real life, but I got cast as the rock grunge guitarist for Molson Beer, and it's because the photographer had worked with me before. He knew I could pull it off. He knew I could give him the right expressions and emotions. Even though there was nothing on my card that indicated that kind of, look, still the photographer was able to convince the art and creative director at the advertising agencies I was the guy, because they could see the wide variety of expressions and emotions that I could deliver. And that's all through using that technique. So with the right wig, with the right makeup, and I also, and this I always find this helpful, and if you're comfortable doing this, I mean, this was a photographer that I knew, I've worked with a number of times. I asked him, hey, could you put some music on for me? I think that will really help. So I'm screaming, I'm singing along and playing the bass a little bit, and I thought it was a pretty good look. Special effects makeup. Look, you are never going to be asked to do special effects makeup. They hire professionals for that. And for a shot like this, it actually took longer to get in and out of makeup than to do the actual shot. But what you do need to do is learn how to do basic makeup. They don't always have a makeup artist on the set. Sometimes they just don't have it in their budget. So what you want to learn how to do is just make your face a nice even palette. So if you wake up the morning of the shoot and all of a sudden there's some dark circles under your eyes, you know how to cover them up. If something grows on the side of your face that wasn't there the night before, you know how to conceal it. And so it's a really important thing to be able to do. If you have to, maybe you can even go to a department store that has a big cosmetic department and just watch how they do makeup. I mean, I really learned how to do makeup from being on sets, watching makeup artists work, asking questions, asking them what kind of makeup would they recommend for camera work, which is different than for regular, normal everyday activity. Just so you guys can see a little bit more special effects makeup. I'm always fascinated, like for this kind of ad, why did they hire me? I mean, I do have very expressive eyes, but there really are a lot of people I'm sure they could have hired. And I guess part of it is they just knew that I could be expressive. They trusted me. They knew I would show up on time. They knew that I would bring ideas to the table. So I'm not complaining. Sometimes I just, you just kind of wonder. You can hardly even see the person. But they cast me, and it was fun. It was a fun job. That one's always weird to see what you might look like, at 80 or 90 or something. And by the way, there is a lot of special effects makeup on that one, just in case you are wondering. Whew, that one's always a little creepy. Now, normally you're going to be stationary. You'll have a mark on the floor, and the photographer will tell you exactly where to stand. Every once in a while, there could be some movement. And for this one, there was a product called Blast. And I asked the photographer, because I was thinking, I want to blast off. That seems like it makes sense. And he said, yeah, no problem. I'll follow you. So as you can see, I'm screaming, I'm blasting, trying out many, many different kinds of ideas. That one didn't quite work. I'm not really a gymnast, but I tried. And in every single shot, there's always life and a lot of energy. And that's what I try to bring. Now, there's also a lot of work that has been going on for a number of years where photographers are able to really manipulate the photos. Years ago, this really didn't happen that much because it was very time consuming and very expensive to actually go on the film and make changes. But now with all the variety of programs that photographers can use, it's very easily done. On the positive side, you can create shots now that you simply couldn't create years ago, or it'd be very difficult. On the flip side, the part that's not so great is that the photo sessions typically don't last as long, simply because they can just fix things later. And so, since most of the time we are paid by the hour, sometimes you're paid by the day, um, the shots don't necessarily take as long, because years ago, when they used to use, it's called Polaroid cameras, and what would happen is the photographer would take a picture, and in like 60 seconds the film would develop, slide out of the camera, and they would look at it, and they might say, oh no, this thing has to move over here a little bit. They would check the lighting constantly, so you could easily spend 30 minutes just testing, just to make sure everything was in place, because once again it was expensive to fix things later. But let me just show you, it's pretty cool what you can do with today's technology, and I think it's great. Oh, those are really neat shots. Those are fun. Wow, that's pretty cool. Now, once again, sometimes people are a little concerned about showing a lot of emotion. I'm telling you, you just got to let loose sometimes. You've got to break free of being concerned of what people will think of you, whether you're going to be silly. My feeling is, just give it a shot. If you're not heading in the right direction while you're screaming, the photographer will let you know. Most of the time, people really love it. So this was a special keyboard. There's a lot of excitement, and I'm just letting loose and screaming. This was really cool. This was at Disney World, and you might have seen this one. It's a national ad campaign, and basically the whole idea is, look, you've been to Disney World with your family, your kids have grown up, come back again as an adult and be a kid again. So we're on the teacup for this one. We did like a bunch of different shots. Some were with Mickey, and then other places around the park. And you just had to let loose, have a good time. And once again, I'm not worried about whether I'm going to look silly. I'm just screaming and having a wonderful, wonderful time. And just to show you, actually, this is interesting. That is on my composite sheet. And because of that shot, I got this job. And this is a Virginia Lottery shot. And the reason why I got it is because they said, oh, we saw the other shot where you were screaming. We knew that you could pull this one off. Now, it's a different kind of look, but they knew that I could pull it off. So that just really reinforces that concept. Bang people over the head with the looks. So once you figure out your type and your looks, show it in your photos, so that way you can more easily be considered for those kinds of jobs. I do a good nerd. Sometimes I'd rather have the agent say to me, hey Aaron, look, I know you're a talented guy, I'm sure you can pull this one off, they need a nerd, as opposed to, hey, they need a nerd, you look like a nerd, I'm sure you can do it. Well, I'd rather hear it the other way, but you know what, it pays the same whether you're the good looking guy or the nerd. Once again, something that's really neat with commercial modeling that people don't necessarily think of, sometimes they can turn into TV commercials. And that's what happened with this one. This is for an internet cable system. And basically we shot the print ad, and these were billboards, and they also shot a TV commercial, and they wanted to use some of the same models in the shot. I've actually done some national television commercials based on me booking the commercial modeling job. Just actually, this happened to be a pharmaceutical. We're shooting this in New York, and once again, this is not my wife, but somebody portraying my wife. And it's a nice shot. It could be used for a lot of different things, but this one happened to be for a pharmaceutical type of product. Hand modeling. There are body part models as well, and there are hand models, leg models, eye models, hair models, teeth models, and it's kind of interesting. If you're walking around in New York and it's summertime and it's 100 degrees outside, and you see people walking around with gloves on their hand, chances are they're either thieves or hand models. You've got to take really good care of your hands, and I've done some hand modeling. Actually, I even did a hand modeling job for a TV commercial, which was really cool. Spent an entire day like holding shrimp and other items, food items, having to dip it. And the director, who specializes in food product TV commercials, we spent probably about 5 hours with, he was explaining, okay, I need your hand to kind of, dip in this way, turn it this way. Okay, no, let's try it this way, where you're going to kind of come in this angle. Why don't you hold it like this? It was unbelievable how specific and how many different ways. So for this particular ad, it's for a utility company, and you get a $50 rebate when you use energy efficient appliances. So the whole idea here was, you're going to be handing out $50, and we spent hours, literally hours, trying out different ways of holding the $50. Is it going to be this way? Is it going to be this way? Maybe this way? Maybe this way. Hold it like this. Hold it like this. It was really pretty incredible. And so if you think you've got good hands, then on your very first composite sheet, I wouldn't have a shot with, just your hands showing, but make sure your hands are visible, and that is one of the pieces of information you will have on your composite sheet. You can say good hands, and that way you can be considered for hand modeling jobs as well. So this one, it's one of the highs and lows of the industry for me. I mean, not terribly high, not terribly low, but I was very excited. Got cast to do an ad for the Wall Street Journal in New York, and it was very exciting. I thought, hey, this is pretty neat. So go up to the photographer studio, and I mentioned to you before about finding specific places, landmarks, so you can have your hands or your body in a certain place and you can hit that mark all day long. So the photographer handed me the newspaper, and I said to him, okay, should I hold it like this? And I was starting to line up my marks, so I knew my right hand would be here, my left hand's here, and I could see exactly where it should be. And he said, no, actually, it needs to be a little bit higher. I said, oh, okay. So I raised it up a little bit. I said, is that good? And I'm starting to line up my marks. Nah, need a little bit higher. I said, like this? It goes, perfect. So as you can see here, that's me in the Wall Street Journal. Once again, why they hired me, I have no idea. I do have a great back, I've got to say. But it was really fun doing this pharmaceutical ad. And this one really sums up everything that I was talking about with this technique. This was a Pennsylvania lottery, and this was for a Valentine's Day, and the top prize was $1,000. You give her chocolates, that's what you get. You give her flowers, hey, that's pretty good. But man, when you give her that, Pennsylvania lottery Valentine's Day ticket, watch out. So anyhow, you have to be able to switch emotions very quickly, do things in a believable way, and give them lots of choices. Let me quickly explain to you editorial work. You might have heard the expression, but you might not know exactly what that means. By the way, just so you guys know, you are looking at a Maxim model. That's right. I was in Maxim magazine. Now, normally you don't think of a guy like me being in Maxim magazine, but I did an editorial for Maxim magazine. Editorials are this. They're not ads. Editorials are photos that are either on the front cover of a magazine, or they are the picture that goes along with an article. It helps explain the article. So for this particular shot, a little bit creepy. It's interesting though. There was an article in Maxim magazine about how long do men live. And I'm the funeral home director, and I'm sizing you up, and if you eat a certain way and you get a certain amount of sleep and you exercise a certain amount, we can kind of predict how long you're going to live. Now, let me share, and I'll show you another one in a minute, but let me explain one thing to you, and this could save you tons and tons of money. I made this mistake once. I will never make this mistake again, and you guys will never make this error. Editorials, like I said before, are not ads. Editorials are actually paid for by the magazine. They will pay the photographer, they will pay the model. If it's in the budget, they'll pay for the makeup artist as well. The reason why magazines do that is because they know that subscribers and people who purchase the magazine like looking at pictures. So they're more than happy to spend the money to have the photos. Now, magazines make their money by people purchasing the magazine and by placing ads in the magazine. So since they're not only not making any money with editorials, they're actually spending money, we get paid a lot less when we do editorial work. And that holds true in the fashion world as well. Fashion models who do editorial work and they're on the front cover of a magazine, they make very little money. They do it for the exposure because there's a greater chance they're going to earn a tremendous amount of money from, a cosmetic line or something like that by being on the front cover of a major magazine. For us, look, I'm not going to be getting them, millions of dollars for a cosmetic line by doing editorial work, but I do it for a couple of reasons. One is it could be a great shot that I will use on my next composite sheet or on the agent's website. And it also gives me an opportunity to work with a photographer and others who might recommend me or hire me for future projects. So I like doing editorial work. It's not unusual to get paid half of your hourly fee or sometimes even less. So here's the mistake that I made. I got hired to do an editorial for Newsweek magazine. I was going to be on the front cover. I thought that's pretty cool. And this was in New York, and I asked the agent, is it 125? Which is half of the 250, which is the going rate. Doesn't mean you always get it, but that's the going rate. And she said, yeah. I said, how many hours? She said, it's a 5-hour shoot. And I'm thinking, wow, well, that's a tremendous amount of money for the day, especially for an editorial. So did the job, and then 90 days later, and by the way, it typically takes 90 days to get paid for a modeling job. If you get paid sooner, consider yourself lucky, but I'd never contact an agent until 90 days are up. So contacted the agent, and after I got my check, and it did take about 90 days, and I noticed that instead of getting the full amount, I only got paid $125 minus a 20% commission fee, which is typical of what agents take in the commercial modeling world. So the agent said, well, you must have misunderstood something. Because I said, yeah, I only got paid for 1 hour. What happened? I was getting paid $125 for the 5 hours of work, not $125 an hour. So if you ever get a phone call about doing an editorial, make sure that you get it really clear. Are you getting paid a certain amount of money? Or actually, let me just turn this thing off right here. Okay. Make sure that you are actually getting paid that amount per hour, or are you getting paid for the entire time? So actually I made $125 for the 5-hour shoot. Having said that, I still would have done it. I mean, I was still thrilled, do something on the front cover of Newsweek. That's pretty cool. And to me, once again, on a little bit of a side note, I don't accept or turn down jobs based on money. I accept jobs because they're fun, they're interesting, it could lead to further work, and there are very few things that I will turn down, and it's only because I'm not comfortable being associated with a certain product, or I think it might hurt me business-wise, and I might turn those jobs down, and that's something for you to keep in mind as well. But the important thing to remember, I always find that jobs lead to more jobs. And I really don't care about the money. Like, I'm not going to lose money on a job, but if I break even on a job, sure, that's not a problem for me. Look, when I first started, I did jobs that paid me nothing, and I was more than happy to do it because it was in my best interest. So if you do an editorial, make sure you just really clarify how much you're getting paid. So let me show you another editorial. That's the front cover of a book. That was in Philadelphia Magazine, How People Are Protecting Themselves Today. That was an interesting shoot. Just another editorial. That's not me. A little anger issue for this editorial, and I think it was some kind of psychological publication. Here's one. It's not the most glamorous shot I've ever done. It was a medical journal, and it was an article about hemorrhoids, things not to do. So you don't want to go into the restroom with the New York Times and sit on the toilet for half the day. Okay, so how to create really strong commercial photos. The key thing is make your photos look like ads. Now, sometimes you might be in a position where you don't have that option, but if you can, try to make the shot look like an ad and show a variety of expressions and emotions. So basically what you're going to be doing for your next photo session, when you're doing some test shots for either your new composite sheet, your portfolio, for your agent's website, you are going to basically produce the shot. You are going to come up with ideas, find locations, find the right wardrobe, find the props, the items that make the shot look real. So if you are a student, maybe you're going to have a computer, you'll have the desk, you'll have books, pencils, pen, a lamp, a calculator, and show a lot of different expressions and emotions. Let me show you different examples of shots that you could potentially do. I went through magazines, and now some of the shots that you might see, because there are a couple different ways of getting ideas. You don't have to create these on your own. Go through magazines and find ads that are right for you and borrow the concepts for the shot. I'm not saying steal the ad, that you can't do that. That's not legal, but you can get ideas, and I'll share with you some other ways of getting ideas as well. So if this is in your category, you look at this shot and you think, even without any headlines, even without any copy, like the words in the ad, this is a great ad. This could be an ad for a lot of different kinds of products. And it's a great relationship shot. And you know the scenario. Mom's coming back from work. She's picking up her kid from daycare. And this could be an ad for a daycare center. This could also be an ad for a product that helps make your work more efficient so you can spend more time with your kids. This is a great ad campaign. It happens to be actually, I'm trying to remember exactly what this one was for. It was some kind of holiday card. I don't know if it was probably Valentine's Day. Anyhow, it's a really cute shot. And even if you didn't have the headlines or the logos and all that kind of stuff, it's a really, really very sweet shot. I like this shot very much, and this is something that maybe you guys could adapt as well if it's right for you. You're traveling, you get a flat tire, you're stuck on the side of the road. It could be for road service, it could be for a product that inflates tires, maybe some kind of insurance plan for tires or for your car. The only thing is you want to make sure that the expression really fits things. Personally, I would have gone with a different kind of expression in this kind of shot, more of the frustration, maybe the anger. You're running late to something now, as opposed to this looks more fearful, which I would go in a different direction with it. But the concept is really good. And as you can see here, not everybody has to have the greatest body in the world in order to do commercial modeling. Love the kid's face, even if you didn't have the logo, the brand name, all the copy. This can be an ad for a lot of different things. Here was a test shot that I did very early on, and I made a mistake here because I have cores, and you really don't want to have the name of a company in there. But I thought, I could get the job as the farmer. It was very expressive. And the one thing, and I mentioned to you earlier about not using animals, this was a really difficult shot because I couldn't get that little pig to stay still. I set up the shot. I found the pig, I found the location, and the photographer and we basically exchanged services. I didn't charge the photographer my modeling rate. He didn't charge me anything, and we both got a chance to use the shot for our portfolio. The problem was the little pig wouldn't stay still. And he's squirming, he's trying to jump out of my arms, and the photographer said, look, if you can't get him to stay still, I can't do the shot. And I'm pleading with him, because like I said, I'm really good with animals. I love animals, and I connect with them, and I'm petting them, I'm singing to them, I'm rocking them, I'm doing everything I can. Nothing would get this little guy to stay still, except at one point, and we're almost ready to just give up, this little guy pees all over me, and he got that smile on his face, and bingo, we got the shot. And one thing that's kind of funny, we kind of like have the same smile. It kind of looks like we're related, but I love how he's got like his little hoof on my knuckle. Really, really cute guy. So as a suggestion, don't use animals or little babies for your test shots. They're unpredictable and sometimes hard to work with. Here's another test shot. And what I wanted to do is, and this is an older composite sheet, or a shot that I used on an older composite sheet, what I wanted to do is combine two ideas. I wanted to get booked as a business guy, so I'm wearing a suit, and I wanted to get booked as a young dad. So I combined both of those elements, and I was thinking this could be an ad for life insurance, for the times you aren't going to be there. That's the way you want to be thinking for all of your new shots. Make the shot look like an ad. Here's another shot where, once again, I'm the young dad. I had this on my composite sheet, and I was thinking, there were two ideas I had. Once again, I'm thinking, okay, so what's the ad? Well, the ad for this was the 529 plans, college, safer college funds, those kinds of plans. I was also thinking it's some kind of reading program for young kids, get them started early. And the crazy thing was, there were some people who actually thought those were real, it was a real ad. And really, I thought it looked great. Um, here I kind of broke my rule of not using a little kid. This is my son, and it's an old shot, and I knew I could get him to stay still because he was really into reading or having people. No, he's not really into reading at that age, but he loved it when people would read to him. So I knew that I could get him to really follow along, and I could get him to really look at the page. I knew it would work very easily. That's why I did use him for the shot, and really, it was a great photo. Here's another shot. Look, I'm a good nerd, so I set up a shot where I look like a nerd. And this, once again, this is a test shot as well. This is a great shot from a magazine. And not only is she not looking into the lens of the camera, her eyes are closed. And it's just a phenomenal shot. And she is showing her hands in the shot. It happens to be for orange juice, but it could be for a lot of different things. And you'll notice her hair is at a place. She just finished this great workout. It's a really good photo. Here's another good shot. Once again, when I say six shot, this would fall under that category. A nice relationship shot. Great relationship shot, and you don't have to mug the camera. You can be looking at somebody else in the shot. Here's another good idea. Personally, I would have liked to have seen a different expression on the woman. I think the guy is fine, but the woman she's not really showing me the happiness in the believable way that I would like, but it's a nice idea for a shot. Here's another good idea once again, I just got from a magazine. This is the way you want to be thinking for all of your new photos. These are strong commercial shots that look like ads with really good expressions and emotions. Just another one, a really nice shot. Great relationship shot. This is another one. They just finished a game. Nobody's uniform is perfect. This is a lot different than what a lot of people do, where they might just stand there with a soccer ball, stand there with a basketball, smiling into the lens of the camera. There's excitement. They just won the game. They've got some mud on them. It was a good game. This is phenomenal. This is something that you could do even without the logo, even without the copy, without the headline. A lot of people could do this shot. It's a great commercial photo that puts you into the category of being able to do a lot of pharmaceutical things. And this is good for kids as well as adults. Okay, so finding ideas for your new sessions. And like I said, you don't have to come up with all these ideas on your own. There's something called stock photography. And if you're not familiar with it, let me just explain it to you very quickly. And I never tell people whether they should or should not do stock photography. I will give you the information, and then it's up to you. Basically, stock shots, when a model gets hired to do a stock shot, it's not an ad. It looks like an ad because the stock photographer wants to be able to rent this photo to a company or an advertising agency, and it has to be ready, camera ready, so that it's generic enough that they can use it for an ad. So they hire models. Now, they pay the models a lot less. Typically, you're looking at somewhere around $75 an hour in New York as opposed to $250, because the photographer doesn't know if he's going to be able to rent the shot or not. So you don't get paid as much, but you do get paid more. You get paid a lot faster. And the other positive thing is you will get a copy of a phenomenal shot that looks like an ad. These have to be slick. They have to look great because they are ready to be used as an ad. So, and that's why a number of models will do stock photography. The only potential problem, well, there are two potential problems with doing stock photography, and once again, it's going to be your call whether you want to do it, is you have no control over where your image is being used. So you could do a stock shot and it's a nice, friendly, photograph of you, almost looks like a headshot, but it could end up in an ad campaign for a product that you don't want to be associated with. And you have no control over it. And that's one of the potential issues with doing stock photography. The other potential problem is if you are being hired to do an ad, let's just say for a bank. They might ask you, do you currently have any ads for any competing banks? They need to know. So, if you've done other ads, you're going to know exactly who the ad was for, how long the ad ran, where it ran. But when you do a stock shot, you have no idea because the stock photographer doesn't send you an email saying, hey, just wanted to let you know, this company picked up your shot, it's running here. You're just you're just a number, one of many, 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 many numbers. And the stock photographers simply, they're not set up to send out emails to their models. So if you're asked, did you do an ad for a competing company? You really have no idea. And if you say, well, not to the best of my knowledge, and you do an ad for this particular bank, and all of a sudden a month later, some other bank happens to use your stock shot, that could create a lot of problems. So I can just tell you, years and years and years ago, I did a couple of really funny stock shots that I thought would be very helpful to me. I haven't done stock photography for a long time, just because of those concerns. The reason why I'm mentioning stock photography to you right now is, one, I think it's important to know about it in case you still are interested in doing it. But there are also really good ways of getting ideas for your test shots. And I've listed 3 different places, stock photography websites, that you can go to. And basically, if you think that you should be doing some ads as a student or a teacher or a banker or as the dad or as a weightlifter, as a gymnast, who knows, as a doctor, as a lawyer, you can do a search on these websites and you will get some really good ideas for your next photo session. Now, some of those shots are too generic and it just wouldn't work unless you've got the words in the shot to make it look like an ad. But some of them would be phenomenal for you. So anyhow, it's another way, along with going to a bookstore and looking through tons of magazines. Also go through some stock photography websites and you'll be able to find some really, really strong ideas. Composite sheets. Okay, so basically, once you've gotten the photos together, one thing that you can do is create a sample composite sheet. And basically what that would entail is maybe taking 4 or 5 photos and put it on a single sheet of paper, go to a local printer and have your name and have the 4 or 5 photos and then your contact and other information on the card, and show it to some agents and get some feedback, and see what they have to say. If they like the shots, then you can go out and spend the money and create a composite sheet on your own. Or if you're in a position where the shots are good, the agents have already approved it, then you can go out and get them printed up. So let me just show you some composite sheets, and I'm going to run through these really quickly. For this first one, it's really a 2-sided card. The first 2 photos are on the front, and the one on the back, on the bottom, is on the back. And as you can see, there's a shot where there's a guy, and by the way, this guy's a really talented commercial model. He's done tons of stuff. The photo on the back, there's one where they're on the phone. That actually is a stock shot, and it's a really, really good shot. So I just wanted to share that with you. Here's another composite sheet, and as you can see, this woman works a lot. She's not, a young teenager, but she gets a lot of work, and you can see the kinds of jobs that she gets. Michael was probably the most successful commercial model I ever knew. This guy worked all over the place. Now, the difference with Michael's composite sheet, as with many others, I've been talking about show a variety of expressions and emotions, don't do the same look. Well, Michael did show pretty much the same look. He just happens to have such a strong commercial look. Just a really good-looking guy that he was able to get away with that. And as you can see here, there's shot after shot after shot of Michael, but he looks great. He also is a hand and foot model, and you can see why he gets those kinds of work. He's got great hands, great feet, and I love that shot with the cigar. I think that's very, very funny. Very talented toes. Another great composite sheet, and you can see on the lower left, once again, that's actually the back of the card. It's a really good teacher kind of shot, and maybe some of you can do that. Maybe this is a real ad, I really don't know, or if it's a test shot, but she found the location, found the kid. It's a really, really great shot. Here's a another really good comp card. This is actually 4-sided, and I'm showing you 3 of them right now. Headshots on the front, and then you've got a lot of other shots. It's just a really strong card. The business guy, the doctor, relationship shots, high-end, vacation kinds of shots. And basically, this breaks all the rules, what I was talking about. None of them look like ads, but he looks different from shot to shot to shot. I think it's really, really good. Let me share with you the business of the business. In my book, and if you don't have a copy of the book, I really highly recommend that you do, because it will just be invaluable to you. There are sections you're going to read over and over and over and over again, and you can get a copy at howtomodel.com. But on page 74, I've got a model release form that you can see. And here's a portion of it. At the end of every modeling job, you should be asked to sign a model release form. And basically, this is a legal document giving the photographer permission to use your image. If you are not an adult, you need to have an adult sign that release form, and you have to sign it, because if you don't give the photographer permission to use your image, you could be up on billboards throughout, North America, and if there's something about the shot that you don't like, you can say, hey, I don't like the way my eyebrows look, take it down. They'd have to remove it because you didn't give them permission. So they need you to sign the model release form. But here's something that's really, really important that most models have no clue about, and they make this mistake all the time. I can guarantee you, when you're on a set and everybody's handed a model release form, 99.9% of the people will sign it and hand it back in. You don't want to do that. I put these things in yellow so you can see it. You will find either these exact words or very similar words in every model release form that basically says they can use your image for any purpose or through any media whatsoever. And they can't. Your agent negotiated a fee based on its usage. And what I mean by usage is this. If the ad is running, let's say in a newspaper, magazine, brochure, direct mail piece, you will get either a day rate or an hourly rate. If it's in a high exposure format, those are billboards, posters on the side of a bus, on the internet, on a package, typically you're going to get a bonus on top of your regular fee, because when you are in a high exposure format, you could lose work. Now, you want to be in a high exposure format. Like I mentioned earlier, it's cool to drive down the street and see yourself on a billboard. When I was driving down a major highway, 95, I was heading south, and there was a truck driving north on it, and all of a sudden I'm looking at the truck, and on the side of the truck I saw that Virginia lottery ad that I did, that you saw me with, I was screaming, and I was thinking, that's cool, that's me, I'm on the side of that guy's truck. It was pretty neat. But the reason why you could lose money is because, number one, when you are in a very high exposure format for a particular company, no other companies are going to hire you in that particular area. So you can lose money that way. The other thing is sometimes models get overexposed. So even if, let's say, you did a lottery ad for that particular state, maybe there's an ad for a local restaurant. The photographer or the people at the advertising agency might say, he's got a perfect look for this thing, but I've seen him all over the place for that, that lottery ad. Let's find a fresh face. So to help compensate you for a potential loss of work, you should get a bonus. So when you find those words that says that they can use your image for any purpose or through any media, you scratch those words out. You write in there very specifically how your agent said the ad will run. So if your ad is running in a magazine, and by the way, in my book, I've got a whole long list of all the questions you've got to ask your agent prior to going to the shoot. And one of them, what is the usage? So if the agent said it's running in a magazine, so you write in the model release form for magazine only. If it's a newspaper, for newspaper only, you initial it, then you sign it at the bottom. And that way, if the company loves this magazine ad and they decide, you know what, let's put it on our website. Now they have to renegotiate with your agent. You get paid more money and your agent gets paid more money. And just so you know, you're not trying to fool anybody. You're not trying to rip anybody off. All you're doing is clarifying in this contract what your agent has already negotiated. And if for any reason, and this has only happened to me once or twice, where a photographer got upset, and started saying, what are you doing? You can't make this change. It's a standard release form. Here's what you do. Blame it on your agent. Just say, look, my agent said she would kill me if I signed this thing as is. Do me a favor, call my agent. Whatever she wants me to do, I'll do. Now, one of two things are going to happen when they call your agent, when the photographer calls your agent. The agent might say, Well, of course, that's the way it should be. He's just clarifying what we already agreed upon. And let your agent battle it out. It's not your job. You're there to work as a model. Let your agent handle any kind of negotiations. The other thing that could happen, and this could happen especially in a smaller market, where maybe the agent gets a lot of business from one particular photographer, and she doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. She might even say to you, look, just sign it as is. Don't worry about it. And the photographer is, I mean, the agent is thinking, you know what, if the photographer uses it on a billboard, okay, she might not make as much money, but she's going to get a lot more money from future jobs with that particular photographer. So I'm not happy about that. I would sign it. I pick and choose my fights with agents very carefully. I'd let that one go. So anyhow, that's how you handle it, but you always want to make the change to a model release form, because I know people who have ended up on TV commercials where a print ad, they took a still picture and used it as part of a television commercial for that company. And because they signed the model release form as is, giving them permission to use it, through any media, they lost out on getting extra money for the TV commercial. Okay, I had mentioned in some of the notifications that you guys got about talking about how to get photos taken free. Well, one of the ways, and I want to make sure I remember that, is going to a local college or university and go to the art department and see if they have photography classes. If they do, speak to the instructor and show them some of the ideas that you have, because you will have made copies of magazine ads or ads from stock photography websites, and show the instructor your ideas for some really strong commercial photos, and ask, are there any students in your classes who would like to build up their commercial portfolio? And I am sure you will find some students. And what you can do is you work out a deal where you're not going to charge the student your regular, modeling rate, and they're not going to charge you anything because they're students. And the worst case scenario is that you do a photo session and the shots just technically are not very good. They're blurred, there's junk in the background, they're just not really, clean photos. But even if that happens, you're going to be able to look at the shot and say, you know what, I love my expression, it looks believable, everything works about it, it looks like an ad, but technically it's just not very sharp. I can't use it, and you have to find another photographer. Best case scenario, you just got this picture taken free at absolutely no cost to you. And if this student decides to go out and pursue commercial modeling work, they've worked with you, they liked your work, why wouldn't they want to hire you again? Just as a little bit of a warning, and I think it's really important, whenever you're working with an unknown person, you're working with a student, doesn't make any difference who it is, bring somebody with you. You just can't be too careful today. Bring somebody with you, let other people know where you're going to be. Like, I'm assuming everything will go great, but you just have to be very, very careful today. But if you do work with a student, here is a very simple release form that I recommend that you have the student sign and you sign as well. And basically what you're going to be saying is that you are giving the student, and put the student's name, permission to use your image for promotional purposes only. And so basically what that means is, if the student wants to use your shot, the one that you did, on his or her website, that's fine. If they want to create a composite sheet and use it as a sample of their work to try to get more commercial modeling work, that's fine, just like you will. But they cannot sell your image without your permission. Now, legally, they can't anyway. They own the copyright to the photo. Whoever pushes the button down on the camera, they own the copyright to the image, but that doesn't give them permission to actually sell it without your permission. But I think when you get them to sign it, it reinforces that idea, or in case they didn't realize it, they can't sell it without coming to you first. And if that does happen and they come to you and they say, hey, look, somebody loves this shot, they want to use it in their ad campaign, then you can negotiate a fee, which is pretty cool. So make a copy, so you get one, they get one, you both sign it, and that's a great way to do it. I would also make sure that your name is on there as well. Okay, a voucher. A voucher is the invoice that you'll be using for every modeling job. And every agency has their own voucher, but essentially they say the same thing. Normally it's a 3 color-coded carbon copy, and you fill it out and you will have gotten just about all the information ahead of time, except you will be putting in, your exact hours that you worked, start time, finish time. They sign it, whoever's being, billed, you sign it, and then you always keep a copy. You give a copy to whoever is being invoiced, and then the other copy goes to the agent. Get the voucher to the agent as soon as you possibly can. What I prefer to do whenever possible, drop the voucher off in person. Now, if they live far away, then you can always fax or to mail it in. But that starts the billing process. But so you don't want to stop into an agent's office unannounced and just walk in and say, hey, how you guys doing? Any work for me? Haven't heard from me for a while. Agents really don't like that for the most part. But if you have a reason to stop in there, that's great. And having a voucher, that's the best, because what you're doing is you are sending a message to that agency that you are working, you're making them money, so they should continue to submit you and really push you to the top of their list because you book jobs. Really quickly, just for a little piece of business, never throw your voucher away. Some models, once they've gotten paid, they toss it out. Never throw your voucher away, because if on your voucher, and you should have this, how long the ad's going to run, that information should be in there. Well, let's say there's a 12-month usage for this particular ad. And let's say 2 years down the road, somebody contacts you and says, hey, I saw your ad running in a certain magazine. And you're thinking, well, wait a second, I did that a while ago. What I do is this. I've got a really nice format, and you can either put it in an Excel spreadsheet or 3-ring binder. It doesn't make any difference. Every job that you do on a sheet of paper, you'll have the year, and then have the date, the name of the agency, and all the contact information. If it's a modeling job, the photographer, the advertising agency, the makeup artist if they have one. And then when you get your voucher, you're going to put your voucher in a little business envelope that says vouchers for that particular year. Then once you've gotten paid, you write paid in full, put the date, and then stick that voucher in another envelope that says paid vouchers for that particular year. So that way, if somebody comes to you a couple of years later and says, hey, I saw your ad in this magazine, and you're thinking, gosh, I did that a long time ago, you can go to your informational booklet and look up the date of the shoot, then go to your envelope for paid vouchers of that year, open up the voucher, and if it says 12-month usage, and now it's been a couple of years, now you can get paid. If you threw the voucher away, you have no proof, and agents typically don't hold on to vouchers, for that long of a time period. So what you do is you contact the agent and you say, look, I just want to let you know the ad that we did is running again. We need to get paid. So your agent's going to get more money, you will get more money. That's how you handle vouchers. Okay, so for a sample cover letter, let's say you've put together a sample composite sheet, or you've got a composite sheet that you want to start mailing out. Here's a really, really good sample of a cover letter that you can use. You'll just change a couple of the names around, whether it's to an agent, whether it's to a photographer, people at advertising agencies, but just something to keep in mind. Make it short, sweet, to the point. And another really key factor for the sample cover letter is have your headshot on the front, on the top of your letterhead. So that way, as they're reading your letter, they can see your face. I think that's really, really helpful. Okay, so just to start winding things up here, for your homework assignment, figure out your type. For me, I'm not the head of the motorcycle gang. I know that might surprise you. I'm not the tough guy. Not to say that I haven't booked some of, not so much tough guy. Actually, I take that back. Yeah, once I was a bouncer at a dancing club, and it was for a TV show. But that's unusual for me. I mean, normally I'm the doctor, I'm the lawyer, the guy you like, the guy who fixes your computer, the science teacher. I mean, those are typically the kinds of roles I'm going to get. The CEO of the hospital, the accountant. And one of the ways you can help figure out your type is by going through tons of magazine ads. And when you see an ad, and you can honestly say, not that you necessarily look like that model, but it's the right kind of shot for you, you will start seeing that over and over and over and over again, and you will start to learn, okay, yeah, those are the kinds of jobs that I'm going to be considered for. Also, when you're sitting down with agents and you're meeting new agents, one of the things that you can do is ask the agent, how do you see me getting booked? What kind of roles do you think are right for me? And when certain types keep getting mentioned, you will know those are the kinds of types that you're going to be submitted for, and hopefully you'll get booked for. Make a copy of the ads, and I mentioned that earlier, from magazines or from stock photography websites, so you can get ideas. And part of the homework assignment is to start getting and collecting maybe 12 or 15 of those ideas. And something that I will offer to you, if you go to my Facebook page, and like I said, it's facebook.com/how-to-model, and if you want to upload some of those ideas that you have, and also upload a headshot or just a snapshot so I can see what you actually look like, I'd be more than happy to spend some time looking at some of your ideas and saying, yeah, I think that would be a really good idea for you, or nah, I really don't think that's a good category for you. So feel free to do that, and maybe other people will spend some time and give you some feedback as well. So let other people help you with that decision also. Then what you're going to do is, once you've got, let's say, 12 or 15 different ideas for actual test shots that you're going to be doing, on a plain sheet of paper, make different categories, columns of emotions. So let's say one of the shots, let's say you're a student, and one of the shots that you're thinking about doing is you just got accepted into the college of your choice. And so on the top of that category, you will put happy, student, and then happy. Well, once again, happy doesn't tell you anything. Make it specific. Why are you happy? You're happy because you got into the college. You're happy because you did well on your SATs or ACTs. You're happy because you won some kind of contest. You're happy because you were voted prom queen or king or whatever it is. Make it specific. And you'll have a whole list of different categories based on the ads that you were thinking about creating and shooting for your test shots. Then think of a real experience in your life that will give you that emotion. And then you're going to look away from the camera, say a word or two, or make a sound that will help bring that experience back. Look up, and then just get anybody to take some pictures of you. Once again, it can be a cell phone. Actually, some of those look incredible. If it's a digital camera, it could be a throwaway camera. Who cares? Do maybe 5, 6, 7 shots of each expression that you're trying to hit, and then look at it. And you've got to be honest with yourself. Do you really look like a guy who's happy because he got accepted into a college? Do you really look sad and frustrated because you're trying to take these generalized exams, standardized exams, and you're just not getting it? Which could also be a really interesting kind of shot, and it could be an ad for one of those companies. If it looks real, it looks believable, you've got it. And every time you go to a go-see, every time you're setting up these test shots, every time you're on a set doing a real ad and you're asked for that kind of expression, you can do it in an instant. And if it doesn't really look real to you and you kind of look like you're posing for the camera, it's not all that believable, then maybe you have to change the experience. Maybe you have to tweak things a little bit. Think of something else. That is how you practice this. This is how you can get the right expressions and emotions. And so that way, when you're actually setting up these test shots, you can just run through it, and you don't have to have the photographer kind of force feed you the little different expressions that you have to pull off. Then what you're going to do is create a sample composite sheet. And like I said earlier, it's a great way to test out your ideas. So take 3 or 4 or 5 shots, whatever it is, go to a local printer, put it all on one sheet of paper, and start showing it to agents. Or they might just ask you to email in photos, as JPEGs, or maybe they have open calls and they want to see you and you want to bring something to show them. And this way you're not spending hundreds of dollars on composite sheets, and you might spend $1.50, creating a sample com card. And if they love the shots, then you spend the money and print a composite sheet. If they don't like the shot, they like you, but they just don't like the shots, then you can go back and retweak them, come up with different ideas, and that way it was a smart business move. You didn't invest a whole lot of money into it, and then you can, make sure you get the kinds of photos that the agent really likes. And the next thing is start beginning contacting agents, and you will have the photos so that when you do meet with an agent, they can see what you look like. Because looking at you in person is one thing, seeing what you look like photographed is very different, and that's why whenever you do meet with an agent, you want to bring them some photos. So basically, that's what I wanted to share with you today, of learning how to come up with the right ideas to create really strong commercial photos. Then next, start practicing putting the right expressions and the emotions together to help make these shots look real. You will be coming up with the right wardrobe to make sure that nothing stands out, that all of the wardrobe that you are wearing really enhances the look but doesn't draw any attention to it. Go out and find a location, to do these shots. Sometimes you can shoot in the photographer's studio. Sometimes you want to go out to make the shot look like a real ad. And then start putting together either a mock or a sample composite sheet, or actually go out and create an actual composite sheet and start meeting with agents. And that is how you can really kickstart your commercial modeling work and really go out and give yourself your best chance for getting jobs. And don't forget, as you're going through this process, I'm more than happy to try to help you with this. So if you do have some ideas, place them on the Facebook page so I can see them and others can see them, and I'm more than happy to give you some feedback. So anyhow, Joel, if people are ready to ask some questions, I'm more than happy to do that now, and I hope this was real helpful to you guys.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Aaron. This has been incredibly helpful and great information. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, our preference is that you'll raise your hand on the GoToMeeting control panel. Get out of your comfort zone and I'll unmute your microphone when you do that. You can talk live on the air and ask Aaron a question or two, or have a quick chat with him about any kind of clarification or questions you might have. Our second option is if you want to just type your question into the GoTo control panel area. You can go ahead and type it in there, and I can ask Aaron. I can be your spokesperson, be your voice, and ask Aaron on the air, and he can answer that question for you. So that's how you'll do it right there on your control panel. And if you do raise your hand and you'd like to be unmuted, just please make sure you're in a quiet area and you have some headphones in, or your speakers are turned down enough to where we're not going to get some feedback. So Aaron, I've got a couple people that have written in some questions, and I would like to ask you those now. Brooke from South Carolina writes in, I know headshots are always 8x10, but is there a specific size for a comp card?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. Yeah, the interesting thing with comp cards, and by the way, there are 3 different names. It's comp cards, composite sheets, and on the west coast of the U.S., they call them Z cards. Typically, they are either 5x7, 6x8, but I've seen composite sheets that were actually 8x10. The way that it used to work is you wanted to make them small enough, typically like 5x7, so that they would fit into the bins on the walls of the agents. So that way, when a phone call came in about a go-see or a possible casting, sometimes the agents would just go over to the walls, pull out the comp cards, send them out. But today, that's not really all that crucial. I mean, some agents absolutely still have the bins, so your card does need to fit into those bins, so it can't be too large, but so much is being done electronically today that it's not as crucial. So like I said, the typical size, could be 5x7, 6x8, but the best thing to do is, before you print your composite sheet, if you do have an agent, ask your agent if the size really is a factor.
Okay, great. Shanika asks, do you suggest mailing the cover letter and resume along with a business card that has your photos in opposed to buying comp cards right away? So do you suggest mailing the cover letter and resume along with business card that has your photos, opposed to buying comp cards right away, I guess is the question.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess part of it will depend on who you're trying to contact. If you've got the photos And let's say you want to submit yourself to an agent. On a business card, the photos are going to be very small and they're going to be hard to see. And I've done this before where when I was sending out a mailing, this wasn't so much to find an agent, it was really a way of marketing to kind of stay in touch with the agents and the photographers and the people at advertising agencies. What I did was on a regular sheet of paper, on my letterhead, I had about 4 or 5 photos on the corners, and they were big enough that they were very clearly visible. And I think that would have a much greater impact than putting them on a business card, because on a business card it's going to be really, really tiny. And so you can do it one of two ways. You can have the photos right on your letter that you're going to be sending out, or if you wanted to just write a cover letter and then send a sample comp card in as well. But if you got maybe just 3 or 4 shots and you can make them big enough, maybe just put them all on the same cover letter, and that way they can see your photos as they're reading your letter.
Fantastic. All right. Kim from Australia says, is it okay to have friends or family members in my test shots?
That's interesting. Um, well, I've got a couple of different thoughts about that. And by the way, I love Australia. I got to tell you, I've done a couple of workshops in Sydney, and it's a great country. And it's kind of like, it's a very, very different kind of environment, and love to go back sometime in the near future and actually bring my whole family. I love to spend time traveling, which I didn't get a chance to do. But anyhow, aside from that, here's the tricky thing with working with friends and family members. Sometimes what happens is, because friends and family might not be experienced, they might not have practiced at all. Sometimes I've seen people's composite sheets where the model looks great, but the friends and the family members, they might be, good-looking people, but they're just not used to working with photographers, and they look kind of stiff and uncomfortable, which makes the whole shot look bad. The other thing that can happen is sometimes the model is so concerned about whether her friends or family are able to pull it off and really make the shot look interesting. They wind up looking fine, but the model is so distracted that it just doesn't work real well. So here's a suggestion. If you want to do a shot with friends or family, then practice. With today's technology, it's so easy to do, and just get a third person, to use their cell phone and share this technique with them and practice it with them. And if it looks like the shot looks great and, everybody looks believable, then absolutely. Or the other thing that you can always do is, if you are working with an agent, and this is another good way of staying in touch with your agent, maybe you could say, look, I want to do a shot, and I'm just throwing out an idea, where you're in the right age category where you could be getting married. So maybe you can ask your agent, hey, do you have, let's say, you're in and you want to find a male model who can do this shot with you, where that person, that guy, is proposing to you. So then maybe your agent will say, yeah, actually, I do know a couple of people who would be interested. And then you could do a relationship shot with another model, somebody hopefully is experienced, somebody who can really do a great job with it. And that way, basically, you're not going to pay the model. You're going to work out a deal where, you both can use the shot for your next portfolio. And it's a good way of letting your agent know that you're interested in updating your photos, that you're really interested in your career, and it will put you in contact with another model that maybe you hadn't met before. Maybe that model would want to do another shot with you. So anyhow, that's how I would go about doing it. So either practice with friends and family to make sure that the shots look great, or go through your agent and see if you can find another professional model to do the shot with.
Fantastic. So Alan asks an interesting question from San Jose. If I have an idea to shoot in a store, do I need to get permission from the owners, or just go in quickly and do the shot?
Yeah, doing guerrilla photographer, sometimes they call it like guerrilla photography. I wouldn't recommend doing that, only because you could run into all kinds of problems, besides from a legal point of view, but even from, look, you want to be relaxed. You want to set up the shot, you want to have the right lights. You want to make sure that the angles are good. And if you just go in there on the fly and just try to snap some pictures really quickly, you're probably going to be just incredibly rushed and not look as good as you possibly could. Something I just thought of that maybe you could do is, if you speak to the owner of a store, let's say, and I'm just throwing this out, let's say it's a coffee shop, and you're thinking that's like the perfect place because you want to do a shot where you're sitting on your laptop and you're, doing some kind of business deal, and you're a business person. Maybe what you could do is this: speak to the store owner and say to the store owner, "Hey, look, I would love to come in and do a shot at your place." And you could even, show an example of what the shot's going to look like. Maybe you saw something else that you made a copy of, or just explain it, to the owner. And maybe work out a deal. You'd have to work this deal out with the photographer as well. Tell you what, if you let me come in here and do this shot, I will let you use this shot to help promote your store. And once again, the photographer has to be okay with this also. But it would be a great win-win-win situation where, especially if it's a photographer who's just getting started, it would be helpful for his or her portfolio. It would be good for you and good for the store. And if the shot works well for advertising, maybe they would want to hire you for an actual ad in the future. But the other thing that's nice, when you do have permission, maybe you could find a time where it's less busy, you're not going to have as much commotion, you'll find a corner in an area where you can just, set it off to the side where you're not going to be interrupted with other customers. And so I would highly recommend sitting down, talking with an owner, getting permission, and not just, jumping into a place and doing a shot real quickly.
Okay, fantastic. All right, a few more questions here. Ginger in Minnesota says, when you talked about using props and photos to make the shots look like real ads, are there problems with using products with their logos showing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to mention that earlier. The problem, and I've seen some people do this where they might be holding, a can of a, certain soft drink, and they're thinking, oh, well, maybe people will think I really did a national ad campaign for this company. And maybe people will, and that could be a problem for a couple of reasons. One is you didn't get permission to use their logo or brand name in the shot. The other thing too is, if that is on your composite sheet and people are thinking, because it's a great shot, looks like an ad, problem is you could be cut out of doing an ad for any competitor of that company. Now, it's one thing if you actually did an ad for that company and then you're using it on your composite sheet. That's fine. But if it's not, why cut yourself out of working for a competitor? So if you're going to be using a product and there is a logo or brand name on the product, just turn it in a way so that you can't see the logo or brand name. And that holds true for your wardrobe as well. You don't want to have a brand name on a shirt, a sweater, or a jacket or something like that, because that could potentially cost you work in the future. And there are easy ways that you can cover things up. But like I said earlier, just in general, make sure your wardrobe really doesn't stand out. And that holds true with locations as well. Sometimes people want to do this shot with this beautiful background. And when I've looked at people's cards, if I'm doing, a private session with somebody and they're showing me some of their ideas, things that they've done, and sometimes I look at these photos and the background is beautiful, these gorgeous flowers and trees and mountains and waterfalls and things like that. And that's the problem, because I'm looking at other things besides them. So yeah, always, if you can, use props, but don't use logos or brand names in the shots.
All right, fantastic. Diana has raised her hand, so she wants to talk on the air live with us. Diana, congratulations for stepping out of your comfort zone to talk with us. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you in just a moment here. Could you just make sure you're in a quiet area? And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute Diana. Hi, Diana. How are you? Can you hear us okay? You might have to make sure your mic and speakers are turned on for your computer. I've unmuted you and I can't hear you yet, but I'll give you a minute or two to see if you can get that corrected. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and mute you again real quick. Go ahead and work on that, Diana. Oh, wait. I think we might hear you. I don't know. Coming through a little rough. I'll tell you what, Diana. Let me ask Aaron another question that someone else has written in, and just make sure that's ready to go. And whenever I come back from that question, we'll go ahead and unmute you again.
Or Joe, I was just going to say, or if
Or
she would like to just type it in, that way
certainly,
you'll have it just in case there's a problem with the sound.
absolutely, she could type that in too. So if you would type that in, Diana, and then if I unmute you again after the next question, and we still can't hear you, we can at least read it over the air. But thanks for stepping up to the plate there and coming on board. This is from, I believe I'm pronouncing this right, Taryn. She's from Chicago. And Aaron, the question is, do you think it's helpful to use websites like Craigslist to find modeling jobs or to find photographers to test with?
Oh, okay. Um, I can tell you, I mean, I haven't gone that route. I mean, certainly I can't use it for acting jobs because it's rare, if at all, where there are union acting jobs on places like Craigslist. But I have to say, I do know some people who have gotten jobs, both acting and modeling, through those types of places. And I mentioned something about this earlier when you're working with students. Um, Look, you can't be too careful today, and if you do, go there. And as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure they even have a section, and it might be called gigs. But you can also just probably do a search for, acting and modeling, and you will find people who post there. And sometimes they're trying to find local people. Sometimes they're trying to find people very quickly. Sometimes they don't know of, agents in the area to go through. Or I can also tell you, maybe they're thinking they can pay the talent less than if they went through an agent. There are a whole variety of reasons why people might go that route as opposed to going through an agency. But in either case, I know people who've gotten some really good jobs by doing that. But I just want to re-emphasize, you can't be too careful. So if, let's say, there is a photographer, and like I said, I mean, I know people who've done this, and they've gotten modeling work and acting work. If it's a photographer who is, holding a casting, what I would do is, without a doubt, I would go to the photographer's website, check the website out very carefully. And if it's a photographer who doesn't have a website, don't even consider them, because I don't know of any photographer that you would want to shoot with who doesn't have a website. Look at their work, make sure these are the kinds of photographs that you are comfortable with, and see the types of things they've done, whether they've done any ads, because sometimes they will list, and show some of the ads on the website. Uh, I would even make sure, the phone number is accurate, when you call, the person really answers. And if all that stuff checks out, everything looks good, once again, bring somebody to the job with you, or even if it's just a go-see. And if there's any photographer that would say to you, nah, I'm really sorry, I just can't have other people around for this session, I wouldn't consider working with them. Look, it's one thing if you're shooting on a set and the photographer says, hey, look, I really don't want other people on the set. They can stay right outside, the door. I mean, that's fine. But if you're going out on location and somebody says, nah, I really don't want other people around, uh, that would send off a lot of signals to me that would make me very uncomfortable. So absolutely, check out all kinds of places for jobs and check them out very carefully. And I would also bring somebody with you. And just once again, a little bit of a side note, if you have an agent and you are marketing yourself and you're trying to get some work on your own, I would still send the job through your agent, and it's well worth it to you and this is assuming that you don't have an exclusive contract. If you have an exclusive contract with your agent, that means all work that you get has to go through that agent. If that's how the contract reads, then there's no question. You can still do your marketing, but send it through your agent. But if it's not an exclusive contract, I would try to get the work on my own and still send it through my agent, because my agent can check the person out carefully. The agent will know what to charge, and there'll be a greater chance that, number one, you'll get paid, and two, that it's a legitimate kind of booking.
All right, thank you very much, Taryn, for that question. It looks like I don't know if Diana, she lowered her hand, so maybe she was having some trouble getting her file, or excuse me, her audio working, and she didn't write in. So Diana, if you want to go ahead and just email Aaron at Aaron, Aaron, at howtomodel.com, your question. Obviously, he can answer that right via email, or you can also go over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/howtomodel, and ask your question there. We'll be able to answer it. Aaron, I want to ask one more question from Juliet from Toronto, and then I wanted to ask if you'd wrap us up, and then I'll close out with saying a few last things, just some housekeeping things and some other cool things I wanted to say. So I'm going to ask one more question here from Juliet from Toronto, Canada. A Canadian on board, which is awesome. She says, you mentioned creating a sample composite sheet. What information needs to be on the sample composite?
Okay, good. Well, the most important thing is your name. People have to know who you are. And the second most important thing is a way for people to contact you. So there are a variety of different ways that people do that. Some people will just have, their home phone. Some people prefer not to give out their home phone and will just put a cell phone number on there. And the other thing that some people have done, where they don't want to give out either of those two pieces of information, you can go to google.com/voice. I believe that is the website address, google.com/voice, and you can actually get choose a phone number free. And you have to fill out a little bit of information, put in a zip code, and you'll get a variety of phone numbers, and you pick one. And basically what will happen is when somebody calls that number that you have gotten, and it's all free, that will forward to any phone that you want it to forward to. So if you want it to go to your cell phone, it can go that way. And so that way, the other thing that's really cool about that is if you don't answer it, I believe that the message is left in a text format. So it's just another way of not giving out so much personal information on your card. And that holds true whether it's, on a headshot, on your resume for a headshot, or on your composite sheet, if you're not exclusive with an agent, you'll have your agent's information. So definitely a name, some kind of contact information, maybe an email address, and once again, make it specific for you. Don't make, sometimes people have these really crazy email addresses that maybe they created when they were really young. So make it really simple. If you can use your name or some easy version of your name, that's great. If you have a website, I would put that. I would also put some of your statistics. You can put your height, you can put your weight. You really don't have to, you can put eye color, hair color. On a sample comp card, I really wouldn't put a whole lot of information. On a regular comp card, there really is more information. Then you'll put more of you'll put sizes in there as well. So that way, if you do get booked for a modeling job, they will easily know what sizes to get for you if they do need to pick up wardrobe. So on the sample comp card, basically your name, contact information, and just a couple of the vitals will be fine, and that way people can look at it, they know who you are, and they know how to get a hold of you. Basically what I like to do, just to kind of wind things up, is to say, look, for those of you who've always thought about seeing yourself as a model, and I know a lot of times people think, well, I've gotten too old, or I've got a full-time job, I can't do this on a full-time basis, or my body's not perfect enough. And so let me just tell you, in the commercial modeling world, as you saw in all the samples that I showed you, there are all different types, different kinds of looks. And I can also tell you that most people do this on a part-time basis. Most people I know have full-time jobs, or they're full-time students. And instead of dreaming and thinking about doing this stuff, go out there and give it a shot. The absolute worst thing that can happen is that you don't get an agent, that you don't get bookings. And you know what? If for whatever reason that doesn't happen, but you've done everything that you possibly could do, then that's easy to put put on the side. I mean, I know, like, for me, when I first decided that I was ready to try New York, there were a lot of people who discouraged me, and I just felt, even if I couldn't get an agent up there, even if I couldn't get any bookings up there, I knew that if I didn't try it, it would haunt me for the rest of my life, and I could deal with not reaching the goals that I had. What I couldn't deal with is not giving it a shot. And so, I was very fortunate, and I did find an agent right away, and I started working pretty early on as soon as I got into New York. And so the important thing is, this doesn't have to be done overnight. Take your time, do your homework. Really test out these ideas, really practice showing different expressions and emotions. Spend some time putting together these photos and show them to agents and see what happens. And also, just so that um, at the end of this workshop, it's not like we're done forever here. You've got my Facebook page. Keep me updated. Let me see what you're doing. If you're running into any issues, send me a note, and I'm more than happy to get back in touch with you and try to give you some advice. Maybe other people on the page can do that as well. So just to really end this, I just want to say congratulations to all of you. Look, I mean, look at the step that you've taken. You spent a couple of hours here with me, really learning how to do this. I think it's really incredible, and I just want to say I have so much respect for what you're doing. You're really giving this thing a shot. So I just want to say congratulations. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, and hopefully, you'll get a chance to meet with an agent. You'll get a chance to be attending a go-see. You'll get an opportunity to be on a set and see yourself, in a publication or in an ad. So anyhow, I had a great time doing this, and I can't wait to talk with you again soon.